Hey everybody,
Oh,
this is Petey from the Spinner Rack. We also have
Calvin Ellis, ready, set, to rock.
today we're talking about Grant Morrison. He's been brought up about this movie. He, as I've said this is not off of All Star Superman. But he of course this has all been branding for other things for you to buy. He also will point out something else that you should look to in reference to the movie. And he has some other things to say about it too, but not all bad. But he does have his angle on different things. But on the subset, he did a piece, not unlike his column he used to do drivel. We used to talk about different things. So we're gonna listen to that. I just have it ready to listen to, and we're gonna react from time to time. But obviously, Grant Morrison has been brought up with the James Gunn Superman many a time. So now we hear what he thinks about it. Ready, set, and we are going.
Supermanic. I should have been in Los Angeles for the premiere of James Gunn's Superman, but traveling to the USA right now feels like venturing into Mordor for a fool's picnic. The unfortunate result that I'm exiled from West Hollywood, friends, and social life, and quite mad for lack of cultural input. As for James Gunn's Superman, must everything be politicized by the quivering, triggered snowflakes of the right? They live in Trump's America, yet somehow everything is still threatening. Everything is still out to get them. Morality so skewed, they can work themselves into a frenzy that a fictional character might be kind, socialist, an immigrant, while tripping over themselves to make excuses for a real-life elite cadre of mega-wealthy perverts dreaming of droit de seigneur over everyone's children.
Ooh.
Anyway, I predicted that Gunn would be the best Superman film so far, and I think he did. Christopher Reeve embodied Superman perfectly in the 70s and 80s, but the films in which he appeared are not great in hindsight. I like Brandon Routh in other stuff, but he made...
You're not gonna stop on that,
I want to hear this.
Mister. Cut all the time. You're not gonna stop on that. I'll keep going. All right.
Grant Good Morrison. How could we? If I was going to stop, I would have stopped with droit de seigneur.
Rescue.
Oh, you were gonna stop on that. All right. So keep whatever you have in mind, and we'll hit it later.
Yeah, go ahead.
I like Brandon Routh in other stuff, but he made for an unconvincing Superman. And, apart from the spectacular plane rescue, too bad there isn't an equivalent super feat scene in the new one. I dislike the Singer film for a number of reasons. Physically, Henry Cavill was pitch perfect as Superman, but when I think of him, all I see is the miserable, pinched expression of a hero with disturbed digestion. I can't picture Cavill's Superman smiling, which is the fault of Zack Snyder's interesting, but ultimately flat and boring, lonely god take. I liked Cavill, and I like Zack Snyder's films. There are elements of his vision of superheroes that don't align with my preferred way of doing things, although I admire his commitment to a consistent vision and have watched his Justice League megacut several times. But the movies were dour and down.
What's what you gotta say?
Now you see what he did here, right? He didn't like it. He didn't like it, okay? But he made certain to wrap up his dislike in a very nice, sweet compliment at the end of the day. He was like, "Oh, I love Henry Cavill." But then look what he gets into. He's like, Henry Cavill looks like he was constipated half the time. I couldn't imagine him smiling. Okay. And Zack Snyder, what did he say? He's like, I appreciate his commitment, his conviction to his story idea, which I did not like. Which I did not like. Excellent, Grant Morrison. Wonderful.
Well, I think if you go to the Josh Whedon, finished version of the Justice League, Henry Cavill smiling in that. He laughed a few times. So
it's not that Henry Cavill. It's not that Henry Cavill couldn't laugh, or did not laugh, or did not smile. It's again the overall thing when it's like, hey, I've seen him smile. Even when you said right here, you said he smiled in the Justice League. I had to actually recollect, like, did he? I'm like, oh yeah, he did. But that character was so dank at the end of the day that you really do have to remember, like, oh yeah, he actually did. And I remember when I saw it in the movie and he smiled. I was just like, huh? What?
I
So
didn't
I
do
was like, wait a minute. I was just like, is this for real? Is he like under?
that.
Is he possessed or something?
Oh boy.
And then you can say what you like about that. When we go to the Snyder cut, oh, we get back to brass tacks. No smiling there, none. So there you go.
No, that's well. I'm saying that the movie, the far as the lightning of it, lightning of it, making it
Mhm.
fun. I think that would made it work when I watched it. When they turn it to the Snyder, I don't understand how people think that thing is watchable, and I don't understand. I understand. Hey, you're about to do Batman Deadpool, so you're getting some money from DC. You don't want to be out on out in the woods, after the like the who's that guy then Dio spent too much money on creators, so now you got to say something nice about it because there's still people out there watching the Snyder Cut. So anyway, um,
Actually, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. There was a scene in Man of Steel where he smiled at Superman. It was right before he. It was right before he snapped Zod's neck. He like smirked just a little bit, and
no,
then he
he
snapped
did
his neck.
not. He's lying, straight lying. All right, ready, go.
Which is to say, watched his Justice League mega cut several times.
Lies.
But the movies were dour and downbeat.
Yes,
Which is
truth.
to say, I don't think any of the Superman films so far have been exemplary. This one came closest to capturing the spirit of the comics, despite turning Superman into a punching bag for most of its runtime. I did appreciate that I was genuinely worried about Superman throughout. It seemed he was up against implacable forces capable of destroying his entire worldview, and that really had me rooting for him.
Okay, second part.
Aside from the robots, which I liked, the moments that borrowed most obviously from All-Star were some of the least effective for me. Superman replayed the brain beats brawn line from All-Star, but it lacked weight
Correct.
and meaning, referring in this
Correct.
case to Superman.
Cut. Cut.
Come on, he's
No, just a little explication on that line. If you read All Star, did you read All Star Superman?
yeah.
All right, so that whole line where he says brain beats brawn every time, that's a harkening back to the very first issue where Luthor is successfully able to poison Superman with this radiation poisoning. And then he's like, okay, so brain beats brawn every time. Then we jump to issue 12, where Luthor successfully now has Superman's powers and Superman is weakened because he's dying. So now he should be able to win the fight, but Superman is able to outsmart him using a gravity gun, telling Luthor, your powers are only good for 24 hours, but when I increase the gravity, it lessens the amount of time for your powers because time is influenced by gravity. Then he knocks him out and he tells him, brain beats brawn every time. In the movie, Luthor says it to Superman, and then Superman replies, but he calls in Crypto to take out the drones. And so you're sort of like, how exactly was that brain beating brawn? But hey, everybody liked the movie anyway, brains. So I just wanted to explicate on that. So Morrison's 100% correct. Doesn't quite mesh, but no, you can.
Okay. Hold on, things are going right here.
I can always tell people about some other times when Henry Cavill Superman smiled that they may have missed. I could, we can go into that while you're getting everything together. You want me to do that?
Oh, I don't want you to do that.
To Superman whistling for his dog to help out again. Lacked weight and meaning, referring in this case to Superman whistling for his dog to help out again. Working out that increasing gravity accelerates time, as he does in the comic to defeat Luthor's 24-hour superpower serum, is a clear case of brains being involved, while calling the guard dog is not. A better line that should have been used here comes from All-Star Superman issue number 5, where Superman Million boasts about his superior powers before young Superman replies, "But I brought my dog." The scene where Superman laments the killing of the kaiju should have ended with an angry Superman ordering the Justice Gang out of the area, then giving super CPR to the creature, reviving it, and flying the creature to its safe new forever home on Monster Island. A missed opportunity for a really great scene. He should have shown
he's right.
the kid with the Superman
That's a little
flag.
too much.
The film should
Why?
have been about
Why is that too
Superman
much?
realizing what he's actually capable.
I don't know. I think that would slow down the movie, and it would kind of go
Mhm.
to, and it also goes to kind of one of the things I think really kind of inspired him for his I know obviously the death of Superman, but I feel like when I was looking at the animated All Star Superman, and at the same time I was watching the Superman from 88, the cartoon, I was like, this Superman and that is similar. So that I would see that cartoon would definitely have Superman bringing the monster back to life and putting them into what's the name. So I feel like that would be kind of more for like the Saturday morning cartoon, not really for a movie. Because in the movie, even though obviously Superman would care for any creature, I don't disagree with that. I think it just would slow down the movie. It's a little too much for me, just movie wise. I'm not
I
saying
think for
it's a
them,
problem.
well, as comic booky as they wanted to say this movie, I think that would have been a bridge too far for the audience because it would have been Silver Age stuff. Like, hey, I'm going to come over here, I'm going to drop him on this island and such. But comic book wise, that would have been perfectly fine. And I do agree with him. If he had had the line, "But I brought my dog," that would have definitely appealed to the scene more. But I know what these guys want. They want to get those lines in the movie, and they want to be the first one to do it. Oh, isn't that a great line? Brain beats brawn every time. Isn't that a great line? Yeah, I'm going to use that, and I'll put it in here. Did it quite work? No, but I still used it. I got there first. I had a
left.
The film should have been about Superman realizing what he's actually capable of and then facing resistance, which he overcomes by embracing his full power. He gets beaten up and bailed out by others too often.
yes, agreed.
Holt's Luthor was fantastic and felt genuinely scary, although a successful narcissistic sociopath would never have wept at the end just because people didn't like him. He would just insist his enemies were liars and that everyone thought he was great.
Yeah. That's all for it. I would say I didn't what was I think he said that his or maybe I didn't have it, but I think saying the difference between what he did and this was more like his Action Comics. I think that was just him selling you on go read my Action Comics, line my pockets, which anybody should do. I do think one of the bits he was saying when he was saying go look at this, that's kind of like a no disrespect to passing Jim Shooter kind of thing of saying go look to this thing of how to do it right in the All Star Superman number such and such. But otherwise, it did have the voice of how he wrote way back in the day. So it was very interesting to hear his take on this stuff. I think I did agree that I did want to have him in a scene in the area where the kid had the what's the name. I think that was the missing piece for me in the movie, which we said before, and that's the one that he was saying. But it is what
He should have been there at the end of when the kid was raising the flag. He should have been the one to go there.
No, just get him over there instead of. I understand what it's easier having them over to do it than have Superman. And as far as the movie goes,
I wanted Superman to. It's like every comment, his criticisms, I think are fair. I don't even disagree. I can't even say that I disagree, and it wouldn't change my enjoyment of the movie. But these are things that I hope, if they do pay attention to anything, I really do hope they pay attention to someone like Grant Morrison, who probably went, saw it, enjoyed it. I remember he just did an interview recently, and he said he watches it and he feels a lot of deja vu. But he's putting on his critical hat over here, not his viewer hat, if you will. It's very possible to go watch and have a great time, say, yeah, it was enjoyable, and still make these particular criticisms. The one about him being beat up, yes. Okay, the only reason why I was able to withstand that is because they never showed him at full power, but they keep coming into these Superman films as if this guy needs to be beat up to show how much he can take and show how human he is. Like, no, you don't need to do all that. You really don't. All-Star Superman shows him at a high level a high level of humanity without doing that. What's more, All Star Superman doesn't sacrifice his Kryptonian heritage to show his humanity. This guy, he walks that line perfectly. So that's something I hope they can do going forward. But the whole thing of always, well, for some reason, they always approach that he's too powerful. We got to do these things in order to make this character a bit more believable. The best way to make him believable is to make him human. Okay, what makes him human? Let's show him getting beat up. I mean, if that's the funniest thing though, or the most ironic thing, is that in order for them to show him being human, he needs to be beat up. That's not the average human's life. We don't wake up and get beat up like 3, 4 times out of the week. You have you have your struggles on a regular basis, getting there. You have these particular limitations. But this whole thing with him, we got to show this guy getting his ass handed to him as often as possible to remind people of his humanity. So hopefully, they can listen to some of the stuff, if they do, that Grant Morrison is putting here, because I think he really does make the connection better as to what made All-Star Superman, such a great work for a character like Superman. And it wasn't a great story, it was a great Superman story. That's something else I hope that they have within them going forward. You can tell a good story, great. Can you tell a great Superman story? Those are two different things.
Well, I don't. I think when he was talking about, I think he went on two sides. He said, Superman getting beat up, and then the worrying about Superman. And I think from the definite books I read in the I guess late '70s, and opening up a Kurt Swan book, or him fighting, was it like the guy that looked like Sean Connery, and it's like, good lord.
Oh, Vartrox.
Or even the Terror Man. It was just like, he wasn't.
That was a good villain.
Those are not people who, I mean, and not just them, but across the board, he wasn't someone who just wouldn't, take a hit and get hurt and this, that, and the other, and maybe figure it out in the end. But and then at the same time, because even Superman versus Muhammad Ali wasn't like it was that strange for it to happen, because it hurt when I see Kurt Swan show a bruise Superman, and not just the case when he's fighting Luthor and he don't got no powers and Luthor's cheating and all that stuff. Just other times when he has powers and he's getting getting beat up. So it's not strange to see that for me. But then I think it became for a lot of people to say, well, after this period he got beat up. It's like, no, he did get beat up in times, and it wasn't the first time getting beat up by Neil Adams. It's just how Neil Adams could show it with Superman was just like, as a kid, like, should I be reading this? The same thing I said when I looked at what's that thing, the New Gods, when I didn't know what it was. I just knew the style of Kirby. It was so rough watching the fight, and I was like, oh my goodness. Is this okay to read? But anyway, I think, what else I was thinking about this. So yeah, I think the going too far and saying, yes, he is right. Maybe some of those fights shouldn't have to be always being helped by the dog, or Mr. Terrific coming in there. Even though they saved it with, even though I was kind of iffy on the baby, because Hellboy with the baby kind of reminded me of playing around with that sort of thing, but. We did have the interesting thing of going into the weird thing of water, thing of that a river in the pocket universe. So there was some interesting looks and that sort of thing. Get that baby out of here. Have Ice Cube come out and say, get that baby out the street, or get that baby out the river. But it's interesting to hear him say that this sort of thing. I did have a very big issue of saying that he didn't like basically saying all of Superman's films are bad and this is the best one, and trying to put the other one in the 70s. I can't or 70s and 80s. I can't really put definitely the first one. I mean I don't go back to much of the third one, but I do watch all of the Lana scenes on YouTube, so it's kind of like those bits. And I probably saw that one in the movies more than I've seen the other two, even though I did see, as a kid, Superman 1 and 2 in the movies. Superman 3 is when I could go myself, and, even though it's not one of the best, it was something I could still see another one marvel at the what's the name, the video game scene, and just like, why couldn't Atari do that for real? So it's like that and a lot of stuff Hill has a place in my heart. So him being, I guess, I always point out that Superman 2, yes, I could see where I would, where I had issues that as a kid, even though I liked it, and then those issues just became ballooned as, as I got older. But at the same time, the first one, I don't think it's hard to defeat, outside of saying having another big supervillain. I don't know anyone, and it had elements that you've seen, definitely a lot of elements that you've seen in the animated the Fleischer films. A lot of those bits, a lot of things, a lot to establish some of the stuff that was like small. They kind of made everything that was in Superman's mythos very large, even time travel. So I don't take just Christopher Reeve. I take the whole movie as it is, and it's just hard to beat, But this one is I think they're gonna find this footing, and hopefully they rush a new one earlier than later. Not try to put out the whole thing.
Well, it's the sequel is set for 2027, so that's pretty fast.
That's good. That'll be better than
that's July 7th. Yeah, it's gonna be less. That's gonna be under 2 years. July 7th, 2027. We will have Superman, the Man of Tomorrow. Yeah, the Christopher Reeve stuff is just. I mean, it's. What's the phrase? What's that old saying? Familiarity breeds contempt. That, for well over 40 years, this was the gold standard of Superman movies, and they didn't, and seems like they couldn't do anything to not just match it, but to surpass it. While everything else seemed to be going on, you had all these other movies, new technology, new special effects, and with Superman, it's not even Superman 2. Everybody really just wanted to harken back to Superman the movie 1978, and so with that, I think you do get a bit of contempt from the guys who are in the know, because they've seen that movie so often, and there does come a point when you're not watching it for strictly enjoyment, but you start, pulling at the threads, if you will. And then with there, it's like, oh, this isn't as good as I thought it was. And then, 10 years later, you go back, you know what, I was wrong. This is great. This is probably the best thing ever. That's just human nature, I guess, over time when it comes to things that become very familiar.
Yeah. So it's to hear him, initially go into that to to say, you can say how great this movie is without, tearing down. If you want to tear down the Singer movies or Zack Snyder, that's fine. You want to go to Superman 4 that they ran out of steam. Yeah, you can go to Superman 3 if you want to say that they ran out of steam in Superman 3. That's fine too. But I think it's like, you can build up this movie, Superman by James Gunn, without pulling those things down and say, yeah, this is obviously, we had, Kirk Allen in the first one, and then, somehow how do you go to George Reeves, but how do you get the next Superman right after that? And it's like, wow, you had someone who really embodied Superman and felt like him. They even tried to make sure he was him. And in the credits, make the kids feel like he was a real person. And then Christopher Reeve comes out of nowhere, and he embodies Superman for most of us for who knows how long. And ultimately, Brandon Routh had the look. I just think the pieces weren't necessarily there. And obviously, you try to do something new and old with the new type of thing that Singer was trying to do, and we don't know what it would have been, but it moved on. And you've talked.
Brandon Routh for me just needed another film. That was pretty much it. He had another film, would have had something else to do from there. But past is immutable. But almost every criticism that I've heard about that film and his performance, I was like, okay, if he had another film, I'm pretty certain that people would say different. Especially since when he got back into the suit again, everybody was like, oh, this is great. He needs a series now. Oh, this is the best thing ever. It's like, I thought he sucked. No, he looks more like Superman than he ever did. I was like, dude doesn't look too much different than he did when he came out. He's got great genes. I was like, whatever, you guys are full of it. But well, we do have something. We do. but before we get off, I want to get off the Superman track for a second. You don't have any comments about what the other stuff that he said? Droit, that was some heavy stuff, man.
Wait, I don't. You explain that to me. I don't. I wouldn't know what that means. I'm gonna show my ignorance.
Droit de,
Sorry, sir.
more people, droit de genre, or more people will probably know it as prima nocta, which is this old custom of first night, meaning that a guy gets married, and whoever's the lord of the land, they got to sleep with his wife the first night.
Well, what was he saying
Right.
that in reference to?
You're saying that reference to the American right, because these guys are like all obsessed. They're all obsessed with like Epstein files and finding pedos, if you will. So he was alluding to that, using that like that they're all like you got this voracious appetite to try to find these guys and do all this other type of stuff. But in the meanwhile, somebody like him can't come to the States without being worried of being deported.
Oh my goodness, that's really funny. Sorry.
That was hilarious
Thank
when I
you
was
for
like, whoa.
that.
No, you can say stuff like that and get away. He might have even known that. Nah, let me use the French. Let me use the French.
That's
They may know the Latin. They may have seen Braveheart.
yeah,
No, they may know
yeah.
the Latin. Let me go with the French over here. That's pretty
That's
common. That's pretty common over here. But these guys are more into Spanish than French over there. I should be able to get away with it. Yeah.